I have no headphones. The only ones I have are the ones that go in my ear, which is obvious because that's what they should be.
All right, everybody, and welcome to the 9 Years podcast. You are listening to Voice of Dick Draper. I'm joined, as always, by I say as always, but Stu, you missed a week a couple of weeks ago, so I can't say that anymore. I'm joined by the face of the BBC Sport website, Mr. Stuart Deakins. And when you're recording a podcast, the most important thing to remember is to press record. Otherwise, you're just talking for the fun of it, and no one's hearing what you're saying. Now, what happened, listeners, is that first attempt at doing the podcast, I put together possibly the greatest speech ever said, orated in the history of mankind. But no one will ever know. Just Stu and me and Lorraine, Stu's wife, because we didn't press record. He's laughing. I mean, he's laughing, but he's not talking because, you know, I'm stitching him up here. But funnily enough, Stu, I still think, despite the fact it was indeed yourself that didn't press record, I still think we should sack George for it.
Yeah, it was. George hasn't been sacked enough this year, to be fair. So, press the record button's always a good point. It actually was our best introduction. Like, to be fair, I can't remember what we said, so we can't repeat it. But I think we're talking along the lines of there's no script. And to be fair, Nick, when there's no script, it's probably one of our better podcasts. Huh?
Yeah, it sometimes is when we don't have a script. As we said earlier, where this podcast goes, nobody knows. As I was explaining, because I have made it to half term, as have many, many other teachers, I'm absolutely exhausted and shattered. Have not had a chance to plan, except for our wonderful game, Whose Nine Is It Anyway? Can't forget that. Other than that, just not had the time. And we've talked about the fact, Stu, that despite this wonderful return to Plough Lane on the horizon, just a little under 2 weeks away, 3rd of November against Doncaster, there is just... I think it's just because generally in society at the moment and the world, because of COVID, there's such a muh feeling. The fact we can't get into stadiums to watch football, that buzz and enthusiasm just isn't there. It's not the fault of anyone. It's just circumstance, isn't it, with the world in the place it's in.
Yeah, because you'd think, if we were moving in the normal that we used to have, I'm positive there'd be loads of little events and stuff that we could go to and be excited for, waiting for. But they're not just there, and it's always really weird, isn't it? Because we've been waiting to go back to Plough Lane now for nearly 30 years, and you see the pictures being provided, which are great. And also, Joe Palmer had his sort of tour around his sort of soccer AM style around the inside of the ground, and you just don't know when you're going to be able to see that. And I was sort of saying before we didn't record, and the joke's probably not as funny now, but they're adding sort of things to the ground, and the sun's appeared now as if it's some sort of great thing, a new addition to the ground, and it's it's ready, but it's not ready, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
It is ready for footballers to play football at Plough Lane, but not for spectators to watch football at Plough Lane. And it's quite sad. It's such a mixed emotions moment. And I'm sure Brentford fans went through similar, although not the same, but with their new stadium opening this season. But I couldn't tell you how Brentford are getting on this season because I've not paid any attention really to football outside of our results, outside of what we're doing. I couldn't really tell you much. And there was Champions League on apparently this week, and it all sort of moulds into one. I didn't even know what was going on. And Stu, before we were talking before we were recording about Champions League teams and the upper echelons of the game, like we spoke last week, and plans that they have for the future. And there was another one that came up this week. I saw about a European Premier League, which was going to run concurrently with domestic leagues, which seems to me just a crowbar for B teams again, because that just doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But it all comes back to that same point. I know I bang on and on and on and on about it. Too much football. And with Champions League, I can't determine what's what really. I know Manchester United were playing because I happened to see it come up on BT Sport. They were playing Paris Saint-Germain, but I wouldn't have known otherwise. Totally lost. Was it a group stage game, I assume? Was it the first set of group? I just don't know what's going on. Totally lost the flow of everything. at the moment, really, it's those involved in football, players and coaching staff, who are the ones who are on top of these things. But fans, it's so hard. I can't muster at the moment the enthusiasm to watch things like the Quest highlight show, or I can't watch Match of the Day, as I said on a podcast about a month ago, 5-6 weeks ago. I just can't get invested in it. I know Luton played in the week. I think they lost at Millwall. But other than that, yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's really difficult. Yeah, we spoke before. Without crowds, it just I've literally gone to some stages where my wife has kind of let me watch the football, and I've sort of like watched it for 10 minutes and gone, you can turn it over now, because it's just without fans, there's just no enthusiasm at all. And you're right, I didn't realise there was Champions League until I think I saw something about Rashford scoring. I don't know what round it is on that sort of side of it. The problem is there's so many games at the moment because we're playing Tuesday, Saturdays. But it's very difficult to get yourself excited. I'm still of the opinion that we're playing games with no real understanding of when money is going to be coming in, which just seems to me crazy. We know last week that the EFL League One, League Two clubs turned down the £50 million, which wasn't £50 million because 30 million of that was loans. Believe it or not, they want to loan money from the Premier League. I think I've got more. I think the more of interest I have at the moment is the actual craziness of these Premier League clubs thinking that fans want them to break away. I think the thing that's going to be interesting. The one thing that Gary Neville did as part of our Beautiful Game project. This is basically the make or break. I think because I think either we let these clubs do what they want to do with their power, their money and power, or the fans take back control. We have an outside regulation. I think it's that moment of truth now, because something's got to give. Because clubs are not going to survive if we continue to have the Premiership dictating all the terms.
We've talked about this for many years, actually. Maybe not seriously, but is a breakaway of the smaller clubs into a different breakaway from the Football Association into a new code of football, have a rugby union / rugby league type split? Is that now becoming a bigger prospect, a more realistic option?
I think if you look at, like I say, I really like the Gary Neville led. He's not the only person in it, but the Gary Neville led Our Beautiful Game. You look at what they want to do, and outside regulators, because it's very, how can people involved in the game be fair? Everyone looks out for their own interest. But I think when you looked at the comparison of the money in the Premier League and then filtering down to the Championship and then further from that, it's just ridiculous. And I think, it'd be interesting to see what fans of the Big Six. We know a lot of their fans are based around the world, which is always that frustrating thing, isn't it? Things have happened this year that are just unprecedented. But football, we knew was broken, didn't we? We knew that what was the point of having an academy team because the Premiership teams can just come and sweep up what they want, and then actually they can have squads of 100 players.
100 teams.
100 teams. Well, might as well. So I think this outside regulation it's the only way I think we're going to save the football as we know it. Half of me thinks if you want to go and play in the Super League, just go. Goodbye, shut the door behind you. But we've got to we're paying a lot of money for football, and in all fairness, we're paying money for an unfair system. It's football is all about dreams, competition, progress, and the Premier League have shown their true colours, as we all knew, and they want to stifle all that. So I'm really hoping that the government get involved. We're asking miracles there, but we need to get outside regulation and they decide what's fair because the Premier League teams can't be trusted.
Like we said before, I think you're right when you talk about the fans of those we'll call them the top six teams. I think the hardcore fans, the loyal fans, the match-going fans, they'll be dead against these. I think they want the same things as we all do. And I think it's as with everything, isn't it? Those clubs want to be successful, but they also want to be successful in a framework in which that success is meaningful. And I think there are teams, with all due respect to Manchester City, yes, they didn't win the league last year, but they're guaranteed Champions League every single season. And it doesn't mean anything after a while when it just becomes, when the gap is so big, when you're so far ahead of everyone else, that so much of your season is redundant really for them. It can't be fun for those teams. It's like us in the CCL. CCL season got very boring, especially after, the competition that season was the FA Vase, wasn't it? And that was the highlights of those seasons, really. Those competitive games that we had. The Colne game, most memorable of all games, really, that season, felt like a real contest and a real atmosphere that day, because you felt that the game was in the balance, and we don't have enough of that at the top end. So I think the hardcore fans, definitely, of those clubs don't want to sit. They would want a little bit more competition domestically. I don't think they're interested in playing more regularly in Europe. They don't need to be, and the European competitions have become so bloated. Like I say to you, Stu, everything happens when we go too much, we go too far, more, and it becomes just it becomes saturated. That's what happened with Europe. Interesting point, though. This has been building for decades. And on the WAP guest book the other day, they did an on this day feature of our 6-1 defeat at Newcastle when Vinnie Jones had to go in goal after Paul Hield was sent off.
Yeah,
and the quote on the WAP guest book was from Joe Kinnear, who pointed out that Newcastle that season had increased their squad or spent £20 million on their squad. We'd spent £125,000 on a goalkeeper, and that was it. A few seasons later, we didn't make any signings over the summer before the 98-99 season. And that was over 20 years ago, 25 years ago nearly. So it's just been building, hasn't it? But every step along the way, and I don't mean this to turn into another Premier League rant edition like last week's, but as I said, we don't have a script this week. It's built up, and every decision that has been made in English football in the past 30 years has been to the benefit of the biggest clubs. Like we said, dismissal of FA Cup replays, narrowing of the League Cup competition, all the things they've done. It's all been to the benefit of the big teams, so they can pursue success in Europe, and so the television companies can spend more and more millions of pounds on an increasing number of increasingly meaningless fixtures.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's not a Premier League bashing, because half of me doesn't think they should bail out. Definitely not Championship clubs, because it's been pointed out that there's richer owners in a Championship than there is actually in a Premiership. I think my issue is the fact that the Premier League have not fairly distributed the money. You know, I've said to you before, the fact that you can literally lose every game, as I think teams like Norwich and that have done previously, and you can pick up £100 million, and then you can pick up 3 years' worth of parachute money. That's why it's called. That's why getting promoted into the Premier League is so crucial, because the money involved in it. But to give you an example, the 50 million quid that was offered, 30 million quid of that was loans. However, because Fulham got promoted back into the Premier League, the parachute money that they would have received, which I believe was £34 million, the Premier League would take that back because they've now got back into the Premier League. So there's actually £34 million that's gone back into the Premier League. How much more money do you need? And you think £1.2 billion was spent in the transfer window. Of 200 million of that went to agents. And we have got clubs for, there is so much regulation that is needed. There was so much money going out of the game. And let's be fair, that 1.2 billion, I'd be interested to see how much actually went back into the Football League. A lot of it goes out, doesn't it? A lot of it goes out into Europe, into that side of it. And I'd like to say, in a way, this COVID's been terrible for everybody. But for football, it might be, not a blessing, because nothing's ever a blessing when people are losing their lives. But it might have just said, football's broken, we've got to do something about it. And it feels like we're getting some quite influential people involved now that are suggesting that. We have to go through with it, because if we continue how we are, then clubs we've got clubs that can't even afford to pay their salaries in October. That's crazy. I read something today that Parry is offering £50 million of loans to clubs. We can't keep loaning money, because at the moment, when are they going to pay it back? It's just, like I said to you before, I just don't know why the league started. I really don't. I love my football, but I just don't get it.
Increasing number of people I speak to are doing the same as me and not watching any of it. As you say, why are things underway? And I get why, because of TV contracts and all the sponsorship deals that are in place. But no one's enjoying it. if you are, let us know. If you are enjoying football this season, please let me know. And I know that there will be some people out there that will be watching, that are quite happy to watch games as per normal, not worried about the lack of fans in stadiums, like seeing lots of goals, because I know that there has been lots of strange results and strange scorelines in the Premier League this season, and not really been replicated at our level. But I think a big thing of this, Stu, is actually just getting people, and it's come back to my rant about the demise of community spirit, really, it's getting people back in stadiums. I was just thinking when you're saying there about clubs at the lower end and a restructure needed for those clubs in big trouble, I don't know why my mind automatically goes to Oldham. That's the club that pops up in my head when you say these things, and I look at them and I think, just need to get people back into the stadiums. But they're in a real catch-22 where, for me, I think if you're in a real... TV is just ruined so much. The live games on a Saturday all day long has really thrown spanners in works, I think. It's just, how much did we pay when we've been to Oldham a couple of times? I think I paid 20 odd quid for a ticket in the away end.
Yeah.
For level 3 football, that needs to come right down, but you're in a catch-22 because people say, well, if you reduce ticket prices, you get more people in. I'm not sure that's true because of the televised games that are swamping our Saturday afternoons now. It's a real mess of a situation, and it does need. I don't see how you fix it. I don't see how you fix it, to be honest with you, because of the power involved in it and the money involved in it. It's sad times. You know what else is destroying communities? Social media.
Oh, yes.
I hate social media. Listeners, you might be well aware of this one. Long-term listeners will know that my struggles with social media, currently Twitter in particular, I don't know, I need to sort this one out. I need to turn my phone off, I think, Stu, and not speak to anyone via the phone, via the medium of telephone, text, or WhatsApp, or Twitter, or anything like that, and break that cycle, because it's just, it's horrendous. You know, I could go on a big rant on this, because this has been something that's been going on professionally in my job. You can all imagine and probably figure out what sort of thing I'm talking about, and it doesn't half weigh you down. The impact it has, the negative impacts of it, so much outweigh the benefits of it. It's the whole internet in general, Stu. And I know the irony of that. We're doing a podcast. Podcast wouldn't exist without the internet, without us being able to do this via Zoom, without us being able to upload it to Apple Podcasts and Google and Spotify and all those things. I get it. Stu, if we didn't have the internet, I think we'd probably just be publishing a old school fanzine still. Mm. They would still be in circulation. They'd still have the stray pubes in the middle of the page, in the centre pages, caught up in the staples. So it's not to say that I can write off the, I can be accused of hypocrisy on this sense. I think there's something else would have taken the place of this. It's just us being lazy, really. We can record a podcast once a week a lot easier than we can produce a fanzine once a week. But yeah, I'm just still of the mind, the internet is ruining everything. And a big shout out, hey, look, it's half term, which is great for me. I don't know, lots of people won't be on half term. So this is a bit of a moo, as I said on Twitter the other day, a moo point, to steal a line from Friends. It's a cow's opinion. It's moo for a lot of people who won't get the chance to read over half term. But read The Road to Wigan Pier by George Orwell, because he is absolutely aghast at the time when he wrote it in the 30s about mechanisation. And all that's happened is he was right, except that we survived mechanisation, but now we're on to automation and the internet, and it's going to destroy everything. But people don't want to hear that, do they, Stu? They probably heard me rant about it enough.
No, but you know what? Me and my wife, we started watching something on Netflix. Is it A Social Experiment?
Social Dilemma?
Yeah, Social Dilemma, that's it. And you know what? We turn it off after 15 minutes because we've seen enough to worry us with all these algorithms and stuff like that. Is it what they call them? Algorithms? I don't know.
Algorithms.
That's the word.
Stu, I work in a school. Don't talk to me about algorithms. It's going to bring back flashbacks and bad memories.
But it just scared you about... They obviously, the first 15 minutes was talking about how they hook you in and how they make sure... And it's scary with us. And actually, to be fair to my wife, she's actually stopped a lot of social media because of it. And it's dangerous. It's an echo chamber, isn't it? Twitter's like that. It's an echo chamber. And I think it was I think one of the things they made sense with me was they were saying, like, with Facebook and stuff, notifications, that was a deliberate thing because people are waiting for their phone to light up. And it's like, and when they said in it. I won't spoil all of it. Well, I've not watched all of it, so I can't spoil it. But when they said like you touch your phone to see if you've got a notification, it's like that sort of adrenaline. It wasn't. No one messaged me, and it's dangerous. And I looked at it and thought, wow, that scares me. And I suppose because I've got a young boy who's going to be going through school and all those sort of social pressures, it scares me about the I'm already worried about when people have to look perfect and that sort of, models touching themselves, not touching themselves up, that's the wrong word, touching their pictures up, like it's not, as you can tell, my wife is sitting next to me recording this, but that perfect person, it just scares me. But yeah, let's get away from pictures. I'll get myself in trouble.
Yeah, get yourself into big trouble there. Read, if you've not read it already, The Coddling of the American Mind for more about this. A fantastic book. And that will talk more about the dangers of social media and how it manipulates people and how it affects their behaviour. And it all ties into my point from weeks ago, Stu, because, as I say, football has not been the distraction it normally would be. That community is being destroyed, and we are doing amazing things at AFC Wimbledon to try and address or redress that balance. John's local action group. Amongst that, the fact that we've got a football stadium in the middle of I wouldn't say it's a deprived area, but it's not the most well-off area, is it, of Wimbledon? So
it's going to have a McDonald's.
Hopefully that helps regeneration around the area. It's got a McDonald's outside.
McDonald's is being built on the corner.
Where?
On the corner. Yeah, so if you know where you go, obviously, if you go down Plough Lane, on the left-hand side will be your ground. On your right-hand side is Lidl, is that right? Is the Lidl there? I'm not too sure.
Lidl or Aldi. Yeah,
that's right. And if you go around to a little roundabout, McDonald's is going to be there. Apparently it's being built already. It's not a deprived area. If it's got McDonald's, it's a posh area, isn't it?
Well, I don't know about this. See, this is what I'm talking about. Destruction of community, Stu. Where are the independents? Where are these multinational conglomerates destroying the little man? Let's get some nice, locally run cafes and burger joints. Maybe, hey, look, listeners, don't hate me. Maybe just a little bit better quality than Fat Boys. Can I say that? People get upset if I criticise Fat Boys.
Fat Boys?
It served a purpose.
If you want a tin of beans on a plate, Fat Boys was good for what it was. It's going to be disappointing. It's not disappointing. You have to move on, but Fat Boys was just symbolic, wasn't it? Of Plough. I don't know what I said. I'm struggling to keep.
No, do you know what?
My wife to the left of me and you in front of me, and both laughing at the things I'm saying. So, yeah, it's going to be a long podcast. This one.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with Stu. Yes, it was the tin of beans on a plate. I mean, that's what made me laugh because, yes, God love Fat Boys, but blimey, those beans did take over. I like a bit of egg and I like beans. You need to use the sausage as a breakwater between the two, however. Right. I don't know where we're going today, Stu. You can tell it's hard. Let's talk football for a little bit. AFC Wimbledon for a little while. There is no script, you can tell, listeners. I'm very sorry. If you're still listening, it's a podcast, so you can't communicate that to us. Please let us know if you made it the whole way through. And also, please tell us if you are enjoying watching football on TV. But for us, for AFC Wimbledon, 2 games this week, 2 defeats by a single goal to nil, both with, injury time, kind of, because one was in the injury time of the first half. Set-piece goals conceded. We've been scoring pretty freely, but we've not managed to these last 2 matches. And then we've got caught defending. It's just defending set-pieces. We've said it so many times, and it must be so frustrating for everyone involved. Because I don't know. I'm going to look up the stats now, listeners. So you bear with me here. Talk amongst yourselves whilst I actually get the result up on the BBC website, because I want to have a look at this. And this could go horribly wrong if this isn't going to help with my argument. But the match statistics say that Hull City had 6 corners, and we could have defended the other 5 absolutely magnificently.
Yeah, and
it's just 1, and everyone talks about that 1 because we conceded from it. But it is we are repeat offenders with this. That's the problem, isn't it? Because it happened against Shrewsbury as well, and. Was it a little bit unlucky, actually, the Shrewsbury one, because Shane McLoughlin at the near post tried to get his head in it,
Yeah.
and in the end just ends up flicking it towards Scott. Yeah. So is that unfortunate? Because I'll tell you what, when I watched the goal back and I paused it because I was trying to figure out on the video who the player at the near post was, and so I paused it several times to try and work it out. It got a hell of a leap on him. Like, he was quite a long way off the ground. He got a good jump. It's just it's just luck, isn't it?
Shane McLoughlin, to be fair, is a different player this year. He's probably one of our most outstanding players. Obviously, I've been fortunate enough to go to some games because of the Back to Plough Lane stuff that we're doing. The one thing I noticed about Shrewsbury, and I've noticed about quite a few sides, is they were just massive. They were a big side, and we're not a big side at the moment. If you look at people in the midfield in terms of Alex Woodyard, Ethan Chislett, Jack Oksana, and they're not big players. They're good on the ball, but I think that's where we're getting done on set pieces. I don't think we have enough strong defensive people. Like I was talking on Saturday actually about it. Remember we had Bayo. I know you can't get much stronger than Bayo, but Bayo always used to screen on the 6-yard area. He'd always screen there. So because logic told you the ball coming into that area 9 times out of 10, and Bayo always used to get rid of them. And if you look at where Clark scored on Saturday, that is a sort of area. So, like some teams will do a mixture of zonal marking and man marking because the zones will be normally around the 6-yard area where a ball tends to go. And if you look at the goals we can see against Shrewsbury and Hull, they're 6-yard areas, aren't they? All those sort of, and we just don't. We're not switched on enough. It feels like I thought the Shrewsbury goal was the flick done us. The whole City goal, I thought we got out-muscled. So Dan Shoker got out-muscled, and then they save. But I think how I look at it, if we're frustrated by the set pieces, they are certainly things you can work on. You can on training field you can work on set pieces. I don't think we're far off being a decent mid-table side. So in a way, I wasn't overly disappointed getting beaten by Hull. But yes, the set pieces are something that we need to work on. But every team works on set pieces. The Hull actually have scored loads of set pieces. So they're obviously, from their championship days, set pieces do tend to decide games.
They are a massive part of the game. As I say, it would be nice, as you say, to relive some old days where we were more prolific from them ourselves. Thinking back, like you say, to the days of Tom Elliott, Bayo Akafemwa, even Tyrone Barnett,
Andy Frampton,
where there was an aerial threat. Andy Frampton, Paul Robinson, yeah, we had some.
We
go
back even further. Matt Everard.
Well, yes, I'm thinking, but even let's keep going back. You go back to John Fashanu and Robbie Earle, who were always pitching in with headed goals, and I could get all nostalgic for the amount of old matches I've been able to catch on various. Well, I say various on YouTube, but they've come to me in various means. Do you know what? Some really like stuff I would never think I'd ever see on there. Who was it? Someone posted, Rob Crane posted, and a video from 1999, Boxing Day, 2-2 draw with West Ham. Neil Ardley scored the equaliser when Shaka Hislop dropped it at his feet from a corner. And I saw for the first time ever the goals from our 4-0 defeat to Crystal Palace. I don't know if you remember that one back in 2001.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know how that cropped up. I don't know how I saw that. Neil Shipley had a great chance. At 0-0. Should have scored, really. But
we have been nostalgic, haven't we? Because I know in our WhatsApp group for the podcast, we were going back on our first games.
Yes.
Yeah. And I managed to find the first game that I ever went to. I think because Plough Lane is around the corner. I think for those of us that are lucky to go to Plough Lane, or we remember our first game. My first one was 1990, beating Arsenal 1-0 at Plough Lane. I haven't been able to find a goal for ages, but I managed to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what? It was like yesterday. It's really weird how your memory does, isn't it? I could remember, as soon as I saw the highlights, I could remember the goal in terms of the passes.
Yeah.
And I can't remember sometimes what we did last week. So that's always a weird one. And then I managed to find my first ever away game, which was away to Shrewsbury, believe it or not, away to Shrewsbury in the FA Cup in 1991, when they basically didn't have a pitch. They had basically sand on the pitch.
Was that Gay Meadow?
Yeah. And again, I can remember the goal, and this will make you laugh. The goal was scored on 38 minutes and 50 seconds. The reason I remember that is because they had a kid coming behind the goal with it on a massive cardboard thing, because I think that was the golden goal or an equivalent. And I remember thinking, you're winding me up, mate, because we're losing 1-0. But it's just interesting what sticks in your memory, isn't it, of your first game. It's very clear.
Oh, yeah. And my first game against Ipswich when I was... Hold on. Got to get this right. -3? No, hold on. -1. When I was -1, found that on YouTube and watched it back. We lost 2-0. I have vivid memories of the 2 goals. It was funny seeing the travelling Ipswich fans behind the goal on the terrace in the Holmesdale Road end, and how few they brought for a Monday night. Of course you would. Why wouldn't you? Why, like, Monday night game? Yeah. And, of course, always reminds me of the Dalian Atkinson goal that Villa scored in front of the terrace with the umbrella.
With the umbrella. It's classic, isn't it?
Which is classic. And then I was thinking back. I was actually watching back. I found it now on YouTube as I've been talking. Talking about headed goals. Sorry, Jason Newell was a great headed goal. This to get back to our earlier point. Not that this was from a set piece, but a great headed goal from Jason Newell. 1-1 draw with Sheffield Wednesday, and it was. If you watch back the footage, a wonderful cross by... Who do you think crossed it in from the right? Bear in mind it's me saying it, so who do you think it's going to be?
Must be Neil Ardley.
Of course it's Neil Ardley. What a ball. What a player, what a man. And we drew 1-1. Paolo Di Canio equalised for them. I don't know why I'm telling you this, ladies. Just because we got all nostalgic about headed goals, and now we're going down this one. But that was about 2 weeks after we drew 1-1 with Liverpool, which was another game I chucked on our WhatsApp the other week, when Marcus Gale scored a fantastic free kick underside of the bar. Michael Owen, do you remember Michael Owen with the penalty? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I remember
Sheffield
Liverpool?
Wednesday, then orange kit. Go on.
Yeah, quite that way. Do you remember Liverpool? I remember we played them in... It was either a league... I think it was a League Cup, and it went to extra time, and I think we won on penalties against Liverpool. And I was in the... I forget what the ends are called now. Not the where the 2-tier stand is now at Selhurst Park. Holmesdale Road, yeah.
No,
that was where...
Yeah, Holmesdale Road.
Yeah, but it was terracing at that time. And I was right at the top of the terracing. And I remember we were winning 1-0, and we thought Joe would get away early. So I remember coming out, walking down the hill, and then just hearing a cheer and thinking, what the... And I think that's when Seegers punched it into his own net or something like that. I think there was a...
Yeah.
And then it went to extra time. Yeah. And I then had to run back in to hope we could get back in. And thankfully they let us in. But, yeah, I think we're all getting nostalgic now because, like I say, we are going back to Plough Lane. Nostalgia, we're going to be starting in a new home ground. And I think we're all looking back now because we just desperately want to watch football. So, yeah, I think that's why we're all getting a bit nostalgic.
Without wishing to speak ill of Kings Meadow, that was an issue. And I know we're going to have younger fans that have only ever known Kings Meadow, and I get it. I understand it totally. And as much as we don't want to admit it, there are people of a generation like myself whose early Wimbledon memories are all at Selhurst Park. So yes, there will be an affiliation for Selhurst Park. I'm very sorry, but you will think back of it. But Kings Meadow, just because of the nature of that stadium, I was like, you can't really get. There was like a ceiling to the excitement you could generate at certain times because of it. And I think Plough Lane, full stadium, big stadium, changes that dynamic. And I really can't wait. But sorry, listeners, we are completely rambling today. We were talking about set piece goals and our troubles defending set pieces in the present day. And Stu, the flip side of the coin of us conceding the goal from set pieces is that we didn't score either game. And if you don't take your chances, then you're always liable to get sucker punched. And we've learned that story many, many times over the years. But Ollie Palmer is due to be back, or he's in the squad, in contention to be in the squad for this Saturday against Burton Albion.
Yeah, so when we spoke to Glenn before, Glenn very much wanted to make sure that Ollie Palmer didn't just come back for 15 minutes and made cameo appearances. I think he really wanted to make sure he had full training sessions and was fit, properly fit, so he could impact games, could play for 45 minutes, 60 minutes. I think he is available. Of course, we go to Burton on Saturday, who are bottom. And George made a very good point, actually, in the week. Our next 3 games are against the 3 bottom sides. So that's either a good opportunity.
As they stand.
As they stand, of course, yeah. But, is that a good opportunity? Our record sometimes against teams that are struggling. Our record at Burton isn't great. We all remember the 6-2 game, don't we? Midweek. So I don't think I'm ever going to forget that game, that side of it. But yeah, we have got to take our chances. We started, our away form's better. The thing is, we're playing away all the time now, aren't we? That's the problem. QPR isn't our home ground. And I think we're just going to a really challenging period. So I remember saying on the podcast many times ago, weeks and weeks ago, that going into a new ground doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pick up. You're just as much the away team as the team coming to visit you. You're getting used to your surroundings and getting too used to your surroundings. The new ground has been hyped up for so long, which will be empty. So I think that it's going to be a real challenging November with us, I feel.
Yeah, we've got some other things to talk about. But we've touched on the Burton game there, as you said. Then on the Tuesday after that, Blackpool, and then next Saturday in Buckinghamshire. Currently our bottom three. Let's look at Burton. And yeah, I mean, they've 4 defeats from their last 5. They've only won once from their 7 games this season. But I have still tipped them to be fine this season because I still think they've got enough experience and enough quality in their squad. But they have been tipped elsewhere as relegation candidates. So many pundits will not be surprised to see them bottom of the table. And I don't know. I don't really know what to make of them. But it worries me. It worries me when teams are on winless runs before they play us. Always a concern.
Yeah, I agree. And they lost in a week to Rochdale as well, they've lost Ian Henderson, who went to Salford City, and that's a lot of goals to lose. But they lost at home by a goal to 0. Yeah, I think you and I, when we were doing the predictions for the this season, I did say I fancied Burton to be one of the teams down the bottom. I felt with Nigel Clough leaving and then Jake Buxton coming in, that's his first job. They're a team that have been together for a long time. Sometimes they get stale. That was my reasoning. To be truthful, I didn't expect us to be playing them and then being bottom. I wouldn't have thought that. But this league's a bit crazy this year. But we need to go there. We need to go there and get a win. We can't. We've lost 2 games on the spin now without scoring, and we're playing a team that's bottom. So we've got to be going there and trying to win the game because we're going into a very tough period. Very tough period.
Yeah, it's game after game after game. The Shrewsbury defeat was frustrated, and we felt we should have done better. It's their only win of the season so far, Shrewsbury. But Hull, on reflection, 1-0 defeat against a team that is expected to go straight back up into the Championship. They are top of the league as it stands. Yes, we can be disappointed about the manner of the goal. 1-0 defeat is nothing to be too upset or depressed about or anything like that, is it? No,
and we had some good chances. We had a great chance in the first half when Jack Redoney got into the area, got a flick in, and you know what? It was unlucky. He's got into the right position, exactly the right position, and just puts it past the post. But again, that Piggott's on form at the moment, and that was a great chance with the goal against. But we had some great chances late on, and I still think the penalty at the end where the 2 players dive in front of Joe Pigott, it looks a penalty all day long. But the good thing is that we were still in the game, because I thought we could end up losing a couple, 2 or 3-0 at Hull, just because of the goals they've scored. But the fact that we were still in the game and they were having to defend late on, and as Glyn was saying, that mysteriously the balls kept on disappearing, which is always a great sign when you've got a team that really are trying to waste time because you're after them. It's encouraging. But even though the performances are encouraging, it's a result business, and we can't go on that. We need to stop the defeats and get something.
The balls kept disappearing.
Well, Glyn said basically, when obviously the balls are cleared out into the stand or for throw-ins and stuff like that, they mysteriously weren't coming back as quickly, which of course happens. Although it's funny with at QPR, when I've been to some of the games, they put the ball. All the balls now are cleaned, aren't they? And then put onto I don't know, stands or something for people to get. So it's like a multi-ball system. Ball's always in play. It's quite a good way. It's quite. Well, I imagine if Neil Warnock was. Remember Neil Warnock used to, was it Neil Warnock? Who was the team that used to have all the towels on the side with the kids? Stoke. Do you remember they used to this year?
Stoke.
They always used to. I think for Rory Delap, they always used to have the towels out and make sure the ball was obviously wet. But then when Stoke scored, if Stoke scored the first goal, all of a sudden the towels disappeared.
I can't say anything, listeners. We've also got the issue of my horrendously dodgy Wi-Fi as well, which isn't helping at the moment. But I think basically Stu was talking about making sure your balls are kept wet at all times and clean. That's what I heard. Right, we are running so late.
That's sounding great.
So let's a quick prediction for Burton. Sorry, quick prediction.
2-0 win.
Okay. I will go for a 1-1 draw. And, well, at least there's goals this time. Whose 9 is it anyway? Let's get this out of the way. I know there's something else to be talking about before we get to that. Stu, I'm very sorry. Me rambling on. You picked up an interesting story, from Tranmere Rovers.
Yes.
Would you like to explain?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. So Tranmere this morning, as we were recording on Thursday evening, put out their iFollow figures. Or their revenue or how many people have subscribed and stuff like that. And it's quite interesting. It was quite interesting. However, Andy Holt went a bit further and actually detailed the income from the games. And it was just a really interesting thing. So the way it goes at the moment, the home team gets 70% of the iFollow money, I believe. And you have to have so many, I think you have to have over 500 away fans for you then to get any money. So basically what Andy Holt did was he detailed all the figures for the game. And basically what it worked out was in all the games that Accrington Stanley have been involved in this season, it has generated £63,280. However, out of that, Accrington Stanley have only received 18,540 of it. So 29.3% of that. And I think what the argument is, we don't talk about the Premiership before saying that, the distribution of money isn't great. I think the EFL are just as guilty of that sometimes with how the iFollow is set up. But it did say it did actually have our game on there in terms of, obviously we played Accrington, didn't we, recently? So it said out of Accrington, the gross revenue was, let's have a look here. So there was 115 subscribers for Accrington Stanley. For us, let's have a quick look. Where are we? Wow. Actually, no, I lied. Sorry. Yeah. No, 186. We had 423 subscribers for that game.
So is that subscribers as in people that got it for free or people that actually paid?
Actually paid.
Okay.
So for the home, so for us was 423 people that actually paid the £10. And then actually for free subscriptions, so for redemptions they called it, so home club season ticket redemption, we had 1,048. But of course, if you look at that doesn't necessarily mean that's people because that could be a household. So it could be somebody in a household of 4. Yeah. But it was just interesting because he was basically Andy Holt was saying is iFollow is good at getting some income. However, for a home game against Rochford, in just gate receipts alone, it could generate 70,000 for one game. So iFollow hasn't given them any. We talk about income and stuff like that. iFollow just isn't given the income, and that's again a big problem. iFollow needs to be. I think we need to resolve with iFollow of a fair distribution of it. But no, it's just interesting that the actual figures have been promoted by Tranmere because I think it's good for us to know how much because we all want to try and generate money, don't we, for the club where we can, through programme, through our non-refundable season ticket. But Andy Holt has been very honest, as he always is. So, no, it's just quite interesting tweets this morning.
You're right. When you look at the list of those numbers, actually, though, on the face of it, when you think, as you say, 423 fans, how does it, I guess if you're logged in under the AFC Wimbledon website as opposed to the Accrington website, I guess. Yeah. So 423 people on the home iFollow.
Yeah.
That's £4,200.
Yes.
Which sounds pretty decent when you put it in context of a club like Accrington against actual gate receipts, it doesn't stack up. And it's interesting. You're right. More eyeballs will be on the screen than that number will tell you. But still, 1,000 odd season ticket holder redemptions, not that many. It's lower than 50%, isn't it?
Yeah, well, to give you, there's 2 games that Accrington made no income from whatsoever because they didn't hit the threshold, and that was our game, and also the away game at Burton Albion.
Oh,
but to balance it up, this is an interesting one. So they played Ipswich Town away. Ipswich Town had 2,090 subscribers. That was in addition to their their season tickets. Accrington had 164.
Right.
So the total gross revenue was 22,540, of which Accrington got £580.
Oh, jeez! Wow, that doesn't make any sense.
No, and the most money they've actually made. So the biggest income they had from a game was for their home game against Peterborough, where they generated 6,450. And that's the biggest income they had from a game.
Wow.
And this shows
they
you...
won, at least.
Yeah, but it does show you that I follow... Don't get me wrong, Ipswich have got... Ipswich should get more money because it's a home game. They, of course, will get the gate receipts from home. But equally, the away team sometimes gets a split as well, don't they? But Accrington are making no money. We're very similar to that. And this is the argument about no fans in the ground. The iFollow is a great format for fans to watch the game, but is it actually making the clubs the money to be sustainable? So, very interesting figures from Andy Holt.
Sorry, listeners, I was just waiting once again for my horrendous Wi-Fi to sort itself out there. I'm blaming Virgin Media once again. Right, that is very interesting, Stu, but we are running so late.
Yep.
We might have to revisit this one in future so we can get whose 9 is it anyway out of the way.
Yep.
Nice and straightforward this week because it's gone for the number 2. 94-95, who wore number 2?
Oh, that's got to be Kenny Cunningham, surely.
Okay, 2001, 2002?
2001, 2002. Who the hell was the right back then? I don't really know. That season for me was a bit of a non-season, obviously for obvious reasons, wasn't it? I don't know, Reece Wilmot.
Okay. Wasn't he the actor guy, the dancer guy?
Chris Wilmot. Mr. Wilmot.
2011. Mr. Wilmot will go for him. 2011, 2012.
Luke Carroll.
This is who started the season. I'm not sure if this player departed in the January transfer window, but I'm not sure if he had a replacement number 2 after that. So this is who started the season at number 2, 2011, 2012.
See, I remember George Frank. Oh, would he have gone back in? Some random, I'm going to go for George Franklin. Just to remember he came in on loan, didn't he? And then went. I don't think he was ever given number 2, though. No, I can't think.
Well, you got 1 out of 3.
Which was the first one,
however, it wasn't the wrong season. Yeah.
Oh.
You got Kenny Cunningham.
Yeah.
But it was not in 94-95. It was in 2001-2002.
Oh, dearie. Was it really? And it's surprising how it plays tricks on you. Okay. So that's half a point.
94-95 instead, and Kenny Cunningham was, in fact, a very famous other right back.
Warren Barton.
It was Warren Barton, indeed. And then 2011-2012, this player would later go on to play for Gillingham, amongst other teams.
Oh, wasn't Ryan Jackson, was it?
It was indeed. Ryan Jackson was the number 2 for our first season back into the Football League. So, nice little trip down memory lane there on what has been a most random of random podcasts. So thank you for listening. We shall wrap it up there because I'm going to throw my Wi-Fi provider out of the window and watch it smash and burn until maybe one day it might learn how to actually work properly. Updates from the game with Burton will be on Twitter at 9wire podcast. But for now, Stu, I'm just going to bid everyone a farewell for this week. We have extra content coming on our Patreon, patreon.com/9wire podcast, so keep an eye out for that. Other than that, Stu, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
It's been interesting this week. Thank you for listening. I'm sure I have many things to say. Alexa Bliss, bag first, milk last, 2 + 2 = 4. We shall speak to you again next Friday.